I love it because now that I bring it into my workshops around the world, we can hook people up and they can see what happens when we get into these different brainwave patterns. And I just find it fascinating because what it proves that we have the power to transform our own health and vitality. And we can see that proof. You know, of course, we know longtime meditators and yogis, we know what their health looks like. But if you could do this and after just a couple of weeks, you could see visibly your results,
right?
We find that that's a huge motivator for people.
Yeah. Faith, I mean, you know, if you look at, I was thinking of the Yoga Sutras actually, when Patanjali actually says, you know, what you need is, you know, first of all, you need faith. And Shraddha is the first thing you need. Shraddha, Vidya, Smriti, you need faith, you need vigour, you need effort. And then you need reflection or inquiry or awareness, right? So, you know, in faith is huge, you know, because, you know, without faith, or as you say, like in, you know, kind of common parlance, motivation, or, you know, you can't continue. And what you need is consistent effort, right? You know, over a reasonable period of time, you know, which I'm sure even though you had the awakening on the bed, you know, it's taken you a long time to put everything together and come to a place of solidity that you can really, you know, with your hand on your heart, go out and teach people these things and you know, and affect change, you know, for others, which you are. What's the one, you know, can you say one thing that has been the most fundamentally surprising thing in your work, you know? In terms of how you change, how people have or haven't changed, or, you know?
I would say the most surprising thing for me in my work has happened since I moved to France. And it happened after that period in meditation where I was feeling like I need to get out there.
Right.
And that was in doing my first TED Talk where I opened up about my experience with depression and anxiety. And I told the whole world that I had this near-death experience.
Yeah.
I did that for myself, just to clear the slate so that as I came back into the media, people would have a different reference. They wouldn't keep referencing my old media image. Right. I had no idea, and I've been completely surprised at how much that opened up my heart and the hearts of other people. So it shifted everything, including my business. Like I now have the Authentic Personal Branding Bootcamp, where I'm helping people tell their personal stories. I never would have dreamed that talking about my wounds would have transformed other people's lives and my own.
It does, though. It does, yeah.
And it sounds like if someone had told me that, actually, somebody did tell me that. I remember somebody telling me my mother had Alzheimer's disease and passed away in September. And when things were really getting dicey, I took a little break from media. And I remember somebody in Hollywood telling me, oh, you should blog about your experience. And there was just something about it that just seemed wrong. And I know a lot of people were doing that. A lot of people share their experience. But for me personally, it felt wrong for me. It was like, no, I don't want to share what's going on with my mom and how I'm dealing with it. A few years in, after I had my first TED Talk, and it was realizing that I had opened up a whole line of communication for people that made me more accessible to them and more relatable to them. And suddenly people were saying, yeah, I'm also a high achiever, but I'm lacking in this area. And how did you do this? So it transformed the way that I started doing business. And that has been the most shocking thing ever.
Really?
For both
That's
reasons.
Funny.
Yeah, I think because one, it helped me grow a very successful coaching business. And number two, it was also healing for me because as I opened up, it allowed me to sit with other people in 12-step meetings and really go deep on my own personal journey and uncover hidden wounds that I had no idea were impacting my relationships, my finances, my confidence, all of it.
It's so strange though, because when you listen to the talk, and it's a great talk, it's clear, it's calm. In no way does it feel like you've just done that one time, or you're just opening up at that very time. I mean, you don't seem nervous at all, or any way emotive, about it. It's just like you've done it. It's just like you've done it 100 times. I'm sure you were at the time, right? But it doesn't. Reflecting on it, like I'm talking to you now and looking at the talk as I did yesterday. You would never know. You would never know. It's very fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Does everyone need a creative outlet, do you think? I mean, you've got many, and you talk about creativity a lot. and many people will say, I don't have, I don't have any kind of creative pastime, or, like I don't feel creative, or, do you think everyone needs it? And how do we encourage that part of ourselves?
You know what? I'm not sure. I'll be honest. I think I
you have a lot of creativity.
And I resonate with creative people.
Yeah.
So like all the people in my life, they have something, whether they're creative gardeners or they know how to cook amazing meals and they add a lot of creativity. I think everyone in my circle has some level of creativity. So I would feel like my gut would say, of course, because I can see it in my clients. When they tap into their creativity, everything else in their life flourishes, just like it did with mine. Mm-hmm. So I don't know about people who don't have some creative pastime, but even just listening to music or appreciating a good film or a good book, that's tapping into that creativity. So, but I'll be honest, that's my response there.
Right. I think it's difficult because I think these days we're all encouraged that everyone has to fulfill their purpose, their dream, their, individuate themselves, right? And be a big, like make a big thing, like, of themselves. And I don't, and I think it puts a lot of pressure, it puts a lot of pressure on the individual to be something particular, something special in the eyes of the world, right? Rather than just, be quietly their own thing and quietly resonate with themselves,
Yeah. But I think what you're saying is important to highlight, because even if we're just doing something that the outside world might think of as small, it doesn't mean it's insignificant.
Absolutely.
And one of the ways I was really brought home to this, coming to the south of France, where everything moves a little bit slower than America, I remember going to a boulangerie, the bakery, wanting to get, some stuff before my daughter went to school. And so I was kind of in an American hurry. And as I saw this little guy go up to the counter, and he ordered his little cafe and his croissant and his baguette.
Too well.
And at first I was irritated, but then I looked at the woman, and she knew him and she recognized him and she nodded and she got him his stuff. And as he walked away, I realized he's taking that back to his wife, who maybe can't get out today or doesn't want to. And that interaction has just helped him and maybe even helped his wife. And who knows, that little interaction. And so are you going to tell me that the woman at the bakery wasn't living her purpose? Like, even if you were a track star or a movie star, someone still had to serve you your coffee. And if you were, some surgeon, every little interaction that we have is meaningful and purposeful. And so I feel like, don't worry if it doesn't seem like it's this big, huge thing that you're living. Sometimes our purpose is just to be this presence of love on the planet, and to beam that, to send that out to
and the purpose can get in the way of actually living, right? Like, you're so involved in your purpose, right? I've got to get there, here, I've got to do this. You don't actually open up to life in that moment, right? Which is always just about small connections with people, But it's funny, I have that experience at the boulangerie all the time. And they give great service, but it's very slow. It's, and they talk, it doesn't matter if you've got 10 people behind, they'll have a little chat. And, it's so different to the UK and I'm sure US, where it's just like efficiency is everything. But where are you going with that efficiency? Where is it exactly? Once you've got that extra time, it goes on people just watching TV or just trying to kill that time,
Yeah, so true.
So, it is very different here. I don't even want to ask you how your French is going, because I'm sure that you're mistaken for a native speaker by now, as I struggle with my my grammar still.
Well, I've been speaking French since I was a kid. So.
Have you?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, God. What about this? You use this word resilience a lot. And it crops up a lot in the way you talk, and I like it. I don't fully understand. I'd like to hear more about this word and what it means for you. Yeah.
Sure. Resilience is a natural capacity that we're all born with. Resilience is the ability to bounce back after adversity, accidents, illness, injury, surgery. And each of us are born with a set of resources or skills that make us resilient. As I mentioned before, we each have our own innate vitality code, meaning all the way into your DNA, there is a code for your body to return to homeostasis, to return to a baseline.
Right. Right.
And in my research, working with huge superstars and normal people, I identified 10 traits of resilience that if we focus on them, we can enhance our ability to bounce back after challenges, but even bounce forward with post-traumatic growth.
I like it because someone once said to me, I wouldn't say you're strong, they said, but you're very resilient. And I thought, it struck with me ever since, because I thought, that's really true, because I'm emotionally, like, I'm quite out there, and my power, as you said, my power is being emotionally open, it helped me incredibly, but yeah, I would say that resilience is something which everyone has if they can tap into it, and it doesn't mean that you don't have emotional feelings or vulnerability. It's not the same thing, you see, showing vulnerability actually helps with resilience.
Absolutely. One of the top 10 traits of highly resilient people, one is positive emotion. The other one is tolerance and compassion. Like the more that we have this greater capacity to broaden our awareness and bring more skills to challenging life situations and to problem solving.
Well, Andrea, we've almost run out of time, and I reckon I could talk to you for ages about loads of different things, but I want to ask you, but I usually ask a couple of questions at the end, but I want to ask you the extra one. Who, out of well-known figures that you might have spoken to or talked to, and I know you've rubbed shoulders with the stars for many years, who impressed you most, or was there a particular action or something that struck you out with someone that really inspired you or impressed you, that someone you met?
Oh gosh, there are so many to think through. I think one that comes to mind today is Beyonce. When I met her and spent some time with Jay-Z way back when I still lived in Washington, D.C., she had come and performed there. And this was the same time that she was still using this alter ego, Sasha Fierce.
Right.
And now that I do so much work with archetypes, I can really appreciate that having this alter ego, Sasha Fierce, when she stepped on stage, she lit up the arena. It was one of the best concerts I'd ever been to. But then when she came back to where Jay-Z and I were hanging out in the VIP, it was like she came in as this very sweet, demure, the Beyonce that we knew back then. And it really struck me the power of activating these alter egos or archetypes. And in fact, I've built a whole hero collective membership helping people tune into these archetypes. So that one comes to mind.
That's really interesting, kind of like Joseph Campbell, kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, and my classic two questions. Give me a guilty pleasure, and don't say you don't have any guilt. Something that's like a little throwaway thing that you like to do for fun, not for any achieving, right? That's the tough one. And also it's something that inspires you. It could be a place, a person, a book, or something that comes to mind. So just to wrap up our time together.
Well, this guilty pleasure is actually creating little videos. Like not just work stuff,
right.
But I love I have an app on my phone and I just create little silly videos, sometimes on TikTok, mostly on Instagram.
Splice them together like
Yeah. Just sometimes I'll have an inspiration, an idea I want to share and I'll do it. And I don't know why it's guilty, but it's my guilty pleasure.
Yeah, just mucking around. Yeah. It's still achieving, really. That's not half as guilty as most people's guilty pleasure, really. But it's not bad,
Yeah.
Okay, and your inspiration? Something that keeps you inspired when you feel a little bit, low of energy or down,
I would say the biggest inspiration for me is my family right now.
Right.
Yeah, when I'm wondering, like, okay, who cares about all the stuff I'm doing, out in the world? I tune back into my daughter, my beloved, and the rest of my family back in the U.S. And I realize, okay, yeah, this is my inspiration to keep going, to keep shining, to keep sharing.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thanks for giving your time. I've really, really enjoyed meeting you and speaking to you. Thank you, Andrea. Thanks for coming on.
It's been a pleasure.